Just a little bit about myself, okay? Actually, I haven't been in politics very long, so perhaps that's the first thing I should clear up. And I'm in politics because of the issue of violence against women. It's the thing that made me put my name forward for selection. So there's a bit of a story I need to tell you about why I'm here tonight. But before that, before I was a politician, I worked as an artist. I'm really a poet and a theatre worker. And I've spent my whole life working in the arts. That's what I've been doing, using the arts as a tool for social change. So it's fantastic to be here tonight, because what this event does for me is bring together the reason why I'm now an elected representative, why I had the courage to stand, but also the way that you are working through creative cultural tools around this really, really important issue. So what I'm going to do, and it's very nice that I can be here and also not just be a politician and speaker, but also be creative. So I decided that I would read some of my poems because it feels relevant, and often I don't get that chance anymore. So it's really nice when I get the chance to sort of revisit my creativity. What I'll do, I'll read a poem and then just explain a bit, okay? I think that'll be interesting. This poem is called Gathering, and this poem is very crucial to my political journey. Okay? We are gathering in parks and on street corners. We're gathering like flocks of birds. We're balancing on invisible wires strung between cities of the world. We're ready to take flight, to encircle the globe with song. We will make patterns in the sky, journey in V-shapes. We tweet our coordinates, ruffle our feathers, and stretch our wings. We will not be ringed or clipped or otherwise caged or contained. We will not be sold for entertainment value or feather our nests in the unregulated markets of failure. We are gathering in the new dawn of a lost civilization. We are gathering at the end of days when everyone else has given up, gone home to bed. We are gathering in snatched moments with babies on our backs. We are gathering, answering the call from afar, hearing the cries of those under the iron rod, beaten and torn and left for dead. We are gathering, we are singing, we are wearing red plumage. And that poem is about the courage I suddenly found to put myself forward to be an elected representative. And it was written after the death of Jyoti Del Singh, who was the Indian student who was raped in December 2012 and then died of her injuries. And I sat in my kitchen, you know, I've been a bit of a keyboard warrior, like a lot of us, signing petitions and getting angry. And I realised at that point it wasn't enough. It's not enough. Yes, do those things, but do more than that. And I joined the Labour Party actually in the summer of 2011. So I'm very recently in the Labour Party. So that's another interesting part of my story. And I'd had an email from the Labour Party saying, could you be the next MEP? And I thought, oh, maybe I could, but I was a bit scared to put my name down. And I thought I might be useful because I'd worked in Europe a lot. I'd worked with young people in peace projects in Europe, and I'd worked in neighbouring countries, Turkey, Moldova, Ukraine. I'd done a lot of international work. And so I was thinking, well, maybe I could, but I still didn't think I had that kind of track record to do it. And then that night, I just thought, what am I afraid of? Why am I scared to put my name down to do this? I will never ever be as frightened as that woman was on that bus. I'll never have to face that in my lifetime. And it's because of her that I filled out the form and I pushed the button on that application form 1 hour from the midnight deadline on the 31st of December 2012. So part of my message tonight is to ask more of you to think about what ways can you stand up? You're here tonight, which is absolutely amazing and wonderful, and all credit to you. We found each other on Facebook because I decided that I'm a public person, but I'm not going to be private on Facebook because I'm just like you, okay? I'm like you, so I haven't closed down my Facebook page. You can find me anywhere and be my friend. Right? So we found each other on Facebook, and great, because I'm here tonight. But that incident, that thing, you know, that awful crime that happened, actually reintroduced me to the world of activism again, which I had been an activist, you know, some time ago, and I'd kind of forgotten about it and thought that other people would do it for me, but they're not going to do it for us. We're the only people that can do it, those of us who are prepared to stand up. I never thought it would lead to me becoming an elected representative. What I actually thought it would lead to, which it did for a while, was for me working with 1 Billion Rising. So in that poem, the V symbol is the symbol for 1 Billion Rising. And what happened to me immediately after getting upset about that death was that I found lots of other women who felt like me, and men actually, lots of other women and men who were really outraged and incensed that this could happen and felt very, very powerless. And what can you do? So you stand together, you make things happen. And in the place where I lived, I ended up coming together with women that I'd never even met before and men that I'd never met before to make a 2-day festival for 1 Billion Rising. This last year just gone, we had a 6-month festival, and we had loads of events. Many more things happened. That in between times I had been selected to stand as a representative for the European elections by the Labour Party, which totally surprised me, and I had been elected. And I think that is an interesting story about the kind of people that maybe citizens want. Maybe they want different voices. They don't want to have, if you like, sort of, you know, people coming through the usual routes. They want a more diverse group of people representing them as in democratic, in councils, in Parliament and in European Parliament. So, having become elected, I'm now learning my job, and it's an amazing job. We now have the European Parliamentary Labour Party has more women than men, okay? We've got more than 50% of Labour MEPs in the European Parliament are women, and we're really, really proud of that. We sit with the Socialists and Democratic alliances, so we work with sister parties from across Europe, and we have nearly 50% within our Socialist and Democratic Alliance, so we have nearly 50% representation from women, which is really good. We have representatives from every single country in Europe, and we're the only group in Parliament that has that. So we have representatives from all 28 countries in Europe in our alliance, and we're the second largest alliance in Europe, which means that we can make things happen. We're not the largest alliance, but we're the second largest alliance. If we work cleverly with some of our other, we work quite closely with the Greens on some things and quite closely with the Liberals on some things. So when we are clever about what we're doing, we can make really good progressive legislation. We have 20 standing committees in the Parliament, and I'm on 2 of them, and they're both relevant to why I'm here tonight. I'm on the FEM committee, which is actually women's issues and gender equality, and I'm also on the Culture and Education committee, which isn't just about arts and education, it's also about citizen participation, and that's another important thing that you're doing, because you're standing up, you're doing things, you're part of civil society, you're part of the connection between elected representatives and the world out there that is trying to change things and push boundaries. So that's part of my portfolio as well. So we've been having an interesting time in Parliament this last week because we celebrated White Ribbon Day and we all signed a pledge, and we work together with the Party of European Socialists, and they're very behind the White Ribbon campaign, and they're really pushing the agenda out to try and stop violence against women. So we're leading on this issue. And we are trying, as part of our campaign, and we're in the middle of a 10-day campaign, a global campaign to eliminate violence against women and girls. And what we're trying to do is to get a European year for combating violence against women, which would be 2016, okay? So we're trying really hard to get Parliament to take that on. And we're also trying to get all the member states to ratify and implement the Istanbul Convention, which is a convention that was agreed upon to tackle violence against women and girls. Now, UK has signed it and hasn't ratified it. Okay, and these processes, they're things we have to go through. But often, politicians, people doing things, people in positions of power and leadership will say things and won't necessarily do them. Okay, and it's really, really important that we make this next stage, that we get this ratified. So I think it's important that you know that the UK hasn't done it. Okay, they haven't yet ratified it. I had a visit from a Slovenian woman friend 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about this, and she said, my country hasn't signed it. She said the government said it was too expensive. It would cost them too much money. You know what that cost is? That cost is women's lives, actually. That cost is women being killed, dying. There are 7 women every day who die in Europe because of violence. 7 women a day. And I don't think that's a good enough answer from a government that it will cost us too much money, because it's going to cost far more if we don't ratify it. And then the next stage, which is really, really important, is to implement it. So you have to be the pressure group that says something about this, that pushes these things forward. So the cost of violence against women and girls is phenomenal. Because of austerity, there is more. There is greater violence. People are really, the austerity measures are pushing both ways. So they're causing anxiety. They're causing a lot of mental health problems amongst all people. That is leading to a greater degree of violence. So austerity is pushing people to perhaps behave in ways they wouldn't normally behave, and they haven't got the support systems around them to deal with those things. But the austerity measures are also meaning that refuges are closing, that the services that women who are afraid or who are fleeing or who are victims cannot access services anymore because those services aren't there. And last week I came back from Brussels and I went to Downing Street, and I went to stand in solidarity with the women's aid organisations who'd gathered a petition of 38,500 signatures to present to David Cameron to try and get him to commit to give money back to the women's aid services so that they can have a functional service that can provide the kind of support that women need when they're fleeing. And what's been happening is that services have been cut back, and many of the women's aid services are run by voluntary organisations. By that I mean the people doing it are not necessarily volunteers, they're experts, but they've come and grown up from a very grassroots basis. And what's tending to happen now is that these services are being put out to tender. So the authorities and the government know that these services are important, but they're putting them out to tender. And tendering often means that the lowest bidder will win. And the lowest bidder can often be ATOS, or an organisation that has no expertise in providing the kind of services that women actually know and trust and feel they will use. So these are stories that this is what's happening, and it's really important that you understand the way that things are going and the way that the services are being squeezed at all levels. Now, many of the women's aid services, they've risen to the challenge, and they are putting in their tendering for that to carry on continuing to provide these services. And many local authorities are able to give them the contract. So in certain areas, it's okay. But in other areas of the country, we're going to find that really, really vital services are not being run by the specialised expert women who really truly understand the sensitive nature of the issue. So it's another area that I really want you to take action on if you can. So look up the SOS campaign by Women's Aid and do what you can, particularly during the next 5 days. So that's probably all I'm going to say. Because I'm on the FEM committee, because people on committees can suggest reports, we can suggest events, we can suggest all kinds of things to happen in Parliament. So I've already made proposals to have some events in Parliament where I bring organisations from my constituency out to Brussels, best practice organisations who can come and share their work. So there might be opportunities for you to come and show what you as men are doing to support what we're all trying to do. And I also just want to tell you that all MEPs have an allocation of money to support constituents to come out to see the work that we do. We can support you financially by helping to pay for travel, helping to pay for accommodation, and helping to pay for daily living expenses. So if you can muster together a minimum group of 10 people, you could come out, you can see the work we do, and you can actually come and attend a committee meeting because they're held open, and you can see some of the things that we're trying to do. And I think it's really helpful because people tend not to understand how the European Parliament works, and it doesn't work like Westminster. It's a very progressive, modern Parliament. MEPs, there's lots of really young MEPs. People sit in Parliament with jeans on. Okay, it's not at all like Westminster. It's fantastic, and I love it. So please think about that within your organisations, how you can come and build this relationship with me and with my wider socialist comrades. I'm going to read you another poem and then I'll finish, but I'll just tell you why I'm reading this, okay? One of the, you know, we think about why is violence so prevalent? Why is it, and we know that violence happens against men too. We know that it does, but overall, women are in the majority. They're the victims of this sexual violence, and we have to think about why is that happening. And it's all connected up, and it's because actually we're not equal. We still don't get fair pay for fair work. There's a gender pay gap, there's a gender pension gap. Older women are going to be worse off than older men. We're invisible in society because there are not so many women parliamentarians. There are not so women sitting on boards. There are not so many women in positions of leadership and power. I think globally, only 20% of parliamentarians are women globally, and that is an appalling statistic. So because we're invisible, it leads, you know, we can be forgotten about, we can be pushed into a corner. And because we're invisible, that leads to objectification. And objectification is the culture that kind of promotes violence. Because of that, it makes violence possible. So I think these things for me are all linked up. So we have to have better representation. And once we get that, we're going to be more visible and there'll be a more equal society. So it's actually sorting out that inequality. So the last thing I'm going to do is read you a poem that I wrote about my own journey, really. And I hope that it is a call to action for some of you youngsters. Okay. It's called Orders, Please. If I was starting out now, I would not wait for permission to join the human race on an equal footing, nor look for that elusive invitation asking me to take my rightful place at the table where everyone can eat their fill. I would enter the men's room through the glass ceiling, abseiling from above in an aerial display of breathtaking beauty, wearing my favourite high-heeled shoes and dressed to kill with compassion. I would not mind my manners or pick up my food with ladylike grace. I would upset the apple cart with my bruised fruitfulness. I would speak out of turn precisely because I have a voice. I would laugh and make jokes at men's foibles and follies. Chastise them like children for their warmongering chants. I would make them clear the table of their devastating debris, wash their dirty dishes and hang out their own laundry for all the world to see that underneath the suits and boots they wear soiled underwear and socks with holes. I would teach them to mend and darn, to knit comfort blankets and sew seams of solidarity, to learn embroidery and other gentle arts,